The first flashes hit the camera lenses, lighting up the red carpet in bursts of gold and white. But all eyes weren't where you might expect them to be. They were on her. Meghan Markle had arrived at the Governor Awards 2025, a star-studded gala designed to celebrate the glitterati of Hollywood, politics, and high society. But the moment she stepped out of the sleek black limousine, something unusual happened. A hush, brief but sharp, swept through the crowd. The photographers, the reporters, even the fellow celebrities paused, not out of awe, but out of confusion. Why? Because Meghan, the woman who had navigated the unrelenting glare of media scrutiny for years, was being denied the one thing everyone expected, a photo op. The very heart of the red carpet ritual. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Imagine it for a moment. You are dressed impeccably, your makeup flawless, your hair perfect, every step carefully curated for the world to see. You walk into a room of glittering stars, all prepared to welcome you. Yet the moment you expect, the one you trained and strategized for, simply doesn't arrive. The flashes that should be capturing your image, the cameras that should be documenting your presence, they stay still. And then, in an instant, a subtle, almost imperceptible gesture from an event organizer shifts the energy of the room entirely. A denial, a refusal. What are you doing here? A voice seems to ask, not out loud, but in the tremor of tension that ripples through the crowd. From the outset, this story isn't just about Meghan Markle and a denied photograph. It's about the collision of celebrity culture, royal protocol, media frenzy, and human emotion, all colliding in one explosive night. It's a story that speaks to the fragility of reputation, the brutality of public perception, and the invisible battles that rage behind velvet ropes and flashing cameras. And it's a story that, until now, has been mostly whispered, hushed conversations, leaked screenshots, fleeting glimpses caught by paparazzi cameras that no one dared to fully interpret. The scene backstage was chaotic long before Meghan even approached the photographers. Security teams, aides, and coordinators huddled in corners, speaking in clipped tones, gesturing urgently at each other. "She's coming through now," one aide murmured, tension etched in every line of his face. "Are the cameras ready?" asked another. And yet, by the time Meghan appeared, the photographers froze. Not intentionally, not maliciously. But there was a ripple, a sudden recognition of something out of place, something that didn't align with the carefully choreographed rhythm of a high-profile event. It's important to understand why this mattered, not just to Meghan, but to everyone watching. In Hollywood and high society, appearances are everything. A single photograph can shift public perception, ignite gossip, and cement narratives that will last for months, if not years. And when someone like Meghan, whose every movement is scrutinized, every expression dissected, faces an unexpected snub, it sends shockwaves that go far beyond a single red carpet moment. Fans and critics alike began posting speculations within minutes, trying to decode the energy of the room, to interpret the meaning behind that abrupt denial. Was it a logistical oversight? A personal slight? A calculated move by event organizers to send a message? The curiosity gap is immediate. For those watching at home, on social media, or reading the reports the next day, the question was relentless. Why would the Governor Awards deny Meghan Markle a photograph? And not just any photograph. A chance to be captured among her peers, to be seen as part of the glamorous tapestry of the evening. The very question carries weight because it suggests a breach in the unspoken rules of celebrity etiquette. These are people who are used to orchestrated perfection, yet perfection faltered the moment she stepped into the spotlight. But there's more beneath the surface than just a snub. The tension didn't end at the red carpet. Backstage, the narrative was evolving in ways that no one outside the immediate inner circle could anticipate. Some staff members whispered that certain celebrities were uneasy about sharing the spotlight with her that night. Others speculated that the organizers were concerned about protocol breaches or perhaps even backlash from influential guests who felt threatened by her presence. And somewhere in the mix, Meghan herself was navigating a storm of emotions: surprise, indignation, frustration, and perhaps even a touch of disbelief that something so routine, something so expected, could be denied to her in such a public forum. The emotional stakes were high, and the tension palpable. Consider for a moment the human element. A woman who has faced relentless scrutiny, whose every public move has been magnified, now confronted by a subtle but unmistakable barrier to her recognition. Imagine the sense of isolation, the almost visceral shock that comes from being physically present but visually erased. It's a moment that resonates beyond the boundaries of Hollywood gossip or royal intrigue. It's a moment that anyone who has ever felt overlooked or undervalued can understand at some level. And that's precisely why this story resonates. It is both intensely personal and broadly relatable, a tale of power, perception, and the fragile veneer of public life. Even the media, the very machinery that thrives on spectacle, was caught off guard. Journalists who had planned to capture her every move were suddenly confronted with ambiguity. What should have been a straightforward photo opportunity turned into a tableau of tension and curiosity. Social media exploded within moments, with observers debating what had transpired. Leaked images, blurry yet evocative, circulated with captions like, "Meghan denied her moment on the red carpet," and "Was this a deliberate snub or a mistake?" The online speculation was relentless, fueling an audience-wide need to understand, to piece together a narrative that could explain what had defied expectation. And yet, even as the cameras flashed, or didn't, the story was only beginning. There were unseen pressures, whispered decisions, and strategic moves occurring behind the velvet curtains. A single event that seemed minor on the surface, denying a photograph, had cascading implications. Staff members debated how to handle the optics. Security personnel assessed the situation for potential disruptions. Celebrities exchanged subtle glances, and aides weighed the potential fallout for the palace, for Meghan's public image, and for the event itself. Every movement, every choice, carried consequences that extended far beyond the immediate moment. As the audience, you might ask yourself, what would you do if you were denied recognition at a moment you had meticulously prepared for? How would you navigate the collision of expectation, public scrutiny, and personal pride? Meghan's experience is a lens through which we can examine these questions. But the story doesn't end with that initial denial. In fact, it is only the opening act of a complex, multi-layered narrative filled with tension, drama, and revelations that will unfold over the course of the night and in the days that follow. And so, as we set the stage for what comes next, one question lingers, hanging over the red carpet and reverberating through social media and insider whispers alike. What exactly happened when Meghan Markle's photograph was denied? And who, if anyone, orchestrated it? The answer is more complicated than you might expect, involving a mixture of human emotion, high-stakes strategy, and the unpredictable dynamics of fame and protocol. But what came next would change everything. And no one saw it coming. The night was alive with anticipation long before Meghan Markle's sleek black limousine pulled up to the Governor Awards 2025. The air was electric, charged with the chatter of Hollywood stars, the low hum of luxury cars arriving, and the rhythmic click of photographers' cameras snapping in rapid succession. Celebrities in glittering gowns and tailored tuxedos posed, smiled, and turned effortlessly for the cameras, each one aware that this was not just an event. It was a statement. For them, this was a chance to shine, to cement relevance in a world where fame is fleeting and visibility is currency. But for Meghan, tonight would not follow the predictable choreography of glamour. Even before she stepped out of the car, those closest to her could feel the subtle tension building. Her aides whispered hurriedly, checking schedules and camera placements, signaling to security to tighten perimeters, all while trying to maintain the calm facade expected at such an elite gathering. Meghan herself, poised as always, projected an aura of effortless grace, yet there was a slight tightness in her jaw, a quiet vigilance in her eyes. She knew the world would be watching, and more importantly, she knew that every gesture, every smile, every moment captured on camera could be magnified, analyzed, and repurposed. The doors opened, and Meghan emerged, stepping gracefully onto the red carpet. For a fleeting moment, everything seemed perfect. The dress, a deep sapphire blue that shimmered under the event lights, the understated jewelry, her hair perfectly styled. The photographers, who had been trained to anticipate each celebrity's arrival, turned their cameras toward her, and the flashes began. It was the kind of moment every high-profile individual dreams about, poised, elegant, and fully captured by the world's eyes. But almost immediately, the rhythm faltered. Something subtle shifted. A photographer hesitated, a hand waved briefly to someone off camera, and the usual choreography of the red carpet. Flashes firing in perfect synchrony, smiles captured, poses perfected, sputtered. It was almost imperceptible, but those attuned to the nuances of celebrity events could feel the disruption. The crowd noticed, too. A murmur ran along the perimeter of the red carpet as whispers began. Is something wrong? Did they forget her? Why aren't they taking pictures? Meghan's reaction was measured, but her aides could see the flicker of surprise in her eyes. In the world she navigated daily, such moments were rare. Rare because the optics of public life are often meticulously controlled, and rare because she had spent years mastering the art of presentation under scrutiny. Yet here she was, fully visible and poised, denied the one thing that should have been automatic, a photograph. The denial, though subtle, carried layers of meaning. In Hollywood, photographs are not just documentation, they are validation. They signify inclusion, recognition, and the tacit approval of peers and media alike. To be denied that recognition, even momentarily, is to be made invisible in a world obsessed with visibility. And for Meghan, the implications were immediate and personal. She was not just denied a snapshot. She was denied affirmation, the acknowledgement that she belonged among the stars, even if only for a fleeting moment. Observers at the event speculated quickly, their theories forming almost instinctively. Some thought it was an oversight, a momentary lapse in coordination among the photographers and event organizers. Others whispered that it was intentional, a subtle message sent by those who had long monitored Meghan's movements and influence. The ambiguity fueled tension. Was this a simple logistical error, or was there a deeper, more calculated purpose behind it? As she continued to walk down the red carpet, Meghan maintained her composure, her steps measured and deliberate. Each stride was an exercise in control, a conscious decision to project confidence even as uncertainty rippled around her. She smiled politely, nodded at familiar faces, and acknowledged whispers of greeting, but there was an unmistakable undercurrent of tension. Security personnel moved subtly to flank her, creating a buffer between her and the photographers, as though anticipating potential disruption or confrontation. The crowd reacted in real time, their energy shifting with the subtle cues of the moment. Fans raised phones to capture images, social media watchers shared live updates, and the event's energy began to oscillate between anticipation and confusion. Some celebrities exchanged glances, eyebrows raised in silent commentary, recognizing that this was unusual even for an industry accustomed to orchestrated drama. Rumors began to circulate immediately. Who made the call? Was it the event organizers? A security decision? Or something else entirely? Backstage, the narrative was even more volatile. Event coordinators huddled in tight circles, speaking in clipped, urgent tones, their gestures quick and precise. She's here. Make sure it's handled, one organizer whispered, a note of anxiety in their voice. Others argued quietly over protocol, debating the implications of allowing or denying the photo opportunity. Every decision seemed to carry weight far beyond the immediate moment, a reflection of the delicate balancing act required when managing high-profile individuals under intense scrutiny. Meghan's aides, meanwhile, were calculating the optics and anticipating questions. Each step she took was being assessed for potential impact on public perception, social media narratives, and future invitations. The denial of a photograph, though seemingly minor, had already begun to reverberate through the event's ecosystem. It was a disruption that carried symbolic weight, signaling something unspoken yet unmistakable, that even in spaces designed to celebrate celebrities, hierarchy, power dynamics, and unspoken alliances could assert themselves in unexpected ways. As Meghan approached the photographers again, the hesitation persisted. A subtle wave from an event coordinator directed the cameras elsewhere, and a photographer stepped back, gesturing subtly to colleagues. For the first time that evening, Meghan's smile faltered, just enough to betray the shock of being denied what should have been automatic. It was an almost imperceptible human moment, fleeting yet profound. Observers who noticed it were immediately drawn into speculation. Was this a mistake? A deliberate slight? Or something even more complicated, woven into the intricate social and professional dynamics of the event? In the midst of this tension, Meghan maintained remarkable composure. Her posture remained upright, her stride unwavering, and her facial expressions carefully moderated. Yet beneath the surface, the emotional stakes were escalating. This was a woman who had navigated relentless media scrutiny, global speculation, and relentless public commentary. And yet, even she was momentarily unsettled by this denial. It highlighted not just the precarious nature of celebrity visibility, but also the human vulnerability that underpins even the most polished public personas. By now, social media had already begun to pick up on the disruption. Live feeds showed Meghan walking past photographers without the expected flashes. Audiences noticed the subtle gestures, and online communities began dissecting every frame of the arrival. Leaks, rumors, and speculation spread like wildfire, adding layers of intrigue to an already complex scenario. Each viewer, each fan, each critic added their interpretation, amplifying the tension and curiosity surrounding the event. But it wasn't just the photographers who were hesitant. Celebrities positioned along the red carpet, some familiar with Meghan and others less so, were subtly adjusting their stances, their expressions, their own public-facing narratives. The dynamics of inclusion and exclusion were at play, revealing the unspoken hierarchies and power structures that shaped these events. Who was allowed recognition? Who was denied? And why? These questions would linger in the minds of attendees and observers alike, fueling discussion and speculation that extended far beyond the red carpet itself. Even as Meghan moved past the red carpet, the tension did not dissipate. Backstage, conversations continued, eyes darting between organizers, security, and staff. Some speculated about past incidents, drawing connections to previous controversies and perceived slights. Others focused on the immediate optics, recognizing that the denial of a photo op, though subtle, had the potential to dominate social media narratives, news headlines, and audience perception for days to come. Through all of this, Meghan remained an anchor of composure and strategy. She navigated the delicate balance between visible grace and internal reflection, aware that every gesture would be scrutinized, every expression analyzed. And yet, despite the uncertainty and subtle disruption, she continued forward, her presence commanding attention, even in a moment where visibility had been technically restricted. The arrival at the Governor Awards, intended to be a celebration of glamour and achievement, had transformed into a subtle battlefield of perception, hierarchy, and influence. A single denied photograph had rippled outward, affecting organizers, celebrities, staff, media, and social media alike. It was a stark reminder that even in the most controlled environments, unpredictability and human emotion can intervene, creating moments of tension and drama that resonate far beyond their immediate context. And just as Meghan began to move deeper into the venue, a shadow of anticipation hung over the room. Eyes watched, whispers circulated, and a subtle shift in energy suggested that the night was far from over. Something was unfolding behind the carefully curated surfaces of this star-studded event, something that would continue to ripple outward, reshaping narratives, perceptions, and alliances in ways no one could have predicted. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. It was supposed to be a moment of triumph. Cameras ready, flashes primed, celebrities smiling for the world to see. But when Meghan Markle reached the precise spot she had been guided to, something unusual happened, something that instantly transformed the energy of the red carpet from celebratory to tense. A subtle, almost imperceptible wave of the hand from an event coordinator, a murmured instruction to the photographers, and suddenly, the expected click of cameras and the bright bursts of light were absent. Meghan, standing poised in her sapphire gown, suddenly found herself denied the most basic acknowledgement that every guest at a star-studded gala assumes will come automatically, a photograph. At first, the moment seemed like a simple miscommunication. A photographer stepped back, adjusting his camera, muttering something under his breath. Another gestured toward the side, as though redirecting focus to a celebrity further down the carpet. Meghan, trained in navigating high-pressure environments, initially assumed it was a temporary oversight. She smiled politely, nodded at familiar faces, and attempted to carry on with grace. But as seconds stretched into a noticeable pause, the realization began to sink in. This was not a fleeting mistake. She was being denied visibility, deliberately or otherwise, and the ripple effect was immediate. The denial itself was almost surreal in its subtlety. No one shouted, no one made a scene, but the message was clear. In the world of high-profile events, where recognition is meticulously curated and every action documented, being visually erased in a moment designed for exposure is profoundly destabilizing. For Meghan, the implications were multifaceted. This was not just a matter of optics. It was a challenge to her presence, her authority, and, on a deeper level, her carefully cultivated public identity. It was an invisible snub, yet the weight of it was unmistakable. Security aides immediately shifted their positions, forming a protective perimeter around her as whispers began to circulate. Organizers and staff exchanged furtive glances, their discussions muffled but urgent. "We need to handle this delicately," one whispered, voice tight with tension. Another muttered, "The cameras can't be allowed to focus here just yet." The rationale behind the decision was unclear to most present, but the effect was immediate and undeniable. Meghan, fully visible and composed, was being denied the affirmation of the cameras, and the room responded accordingly. Onlookers, both on the red carpet and just beyond, sensed the disruption instantly. Celebrities who had been posing for photographs glanced at one another, eyebrows raised, some exchanging subtle expressions of confusion or concern. The crowd of fans and media on the perimeter murmured, phones raised in anticipation, only to be met with a void of flashes. Social media, ever quick to capture and amplify moments of tension, began to light up almost immediately. Live feeds, fan posts, and commentary speculated on what was happening. Was this an oversight? A deliberate act? Or part of a larger narrative being orchestrated behind the scenes? Inside the event, backstage, the tension was magnified. Event coordinators and staff huddled in tight, urgent discussions. "She's here, and we have to manage this carefully," an organizer whispered, pacing. "If the cameras turn now, it could create an optics nightmare." Security, meanwhile, assessed the crowd, scanning for potential disruptions or overzealous photographers who might defy instructions. The atmosphere was tense, the stakes high. For the organizers, a single misstep could spark a media frenzy, and for Meghan, the denial was more than just a professional inconvenience. It was a moment charged with personal and emotional significance. Meghan's immediate emotional response was subtle but revealing. Her eyes flickered with surprise, a tightness appearing in her jaw, and a slight pause in her otherwise fluid movements betrayed the disruption of expectation. Anyone who has navigated public life under constant scrutiny understands the delicate balance between composure and emotion. Here, Meghan maintained her poise, but the inner turbulence was unmistakable to those closest to her. Her aides, attuned to every nuance, began recalibrating their strategy, signaling to photographers and coordinating movements to mitigate the impact of the denial. Meanwhile, the ripple of curiosity extended outward. Journalists and photographers, momentarily paralyzed by the unexpected pause, began to speculate. Leaks circulated rapidly on social media, accompanied by blurry images and captioned with questions. Why wasn't Meghan photographed? Is this a subtle snub or a technical error? The ambiguity created a perfect storm for speculation, drawing attention and igniting conversations that spanned the entertainment world, social media forums, and celebrity gossip platforms. Every observer was trying to interpret the motives behind the decision, and each interpretation carried its own potential consequences. The denial carried a dual layer of impact, public and private. Publicly, Meghan was visible, yet simultaneously invisible, a paradox that amplified audience curiosity and engagement. Privately, the implications for her personal and professional team were immediate. Her aides had to weigh every potential response, balancing the need to maintain composure against the necessity of protecting her image and credibility. A single misstep could escalate the tension, creating a narrative that suggested vulnerability or disarray. Even the other celebrities on the red carpet reacted, though subtly. Some offered brief, supportive smiles. Others exchanged glances that were either amused, bemused, or calculatedly indifferent. In events of this magnitude, micro-expressions and subtle interactions often carry as much weight as overt gestures. Each reaction contributed to the complex narrative unfolding before the cameras, amplifying the uncertainty and heightening the tension of the moment. The denial also revealed cracks in the event's coordination. A photographer, flustered and muttering apologies, attempted to recalibrate his camera, while an organizer gestured urgently for the flashes to remain inactive. Security personnel exchanged quick instructions, creating a buffer of space between Meghan and the rest of the crowd. Every movement, every instruction, every whisper contributed to the layered drama, creating a scene that was tense, fluid, and charged with emotion. For Meghan, the psychological impact was compounded by the expectation that, in public life, visibility is power. A photograph is not merely an image. It is affirmation of presence, acknowledgement of status, and a tool for narrative control. To be denied this, even for a moment, is to be stripped of a key element of influence and recognition. It's a subtle, almost imperceptible form of erasure, but one that resonates profoundly in a world where image is everything. Social media's reaction was immediate and frenzied. Observers speculated about motives, insiders hinted at behind-the-scenes tensions, and fan communities debated the significance of the denied photograph. Every post, tweet, and story added layers of narrative, amplifying the drama and cementing the moment as a topic of widespread curiosity. The audience at home, watching live streams or scrolling through feeds, was pulled into the unfolding story, each viewer adding their own interpretation and expectation for what would happen next. Backstage, the stakes escalated further. Event staff scrambled to manage both optics and logistics, while Meghan's aides assessed the immediate need for damage control. A single photograph could have mitigated speculation. The absence of one fueled it. Whispers of discontent, confusion, and strategic calculation filled the air. Each player, organizers, security, staff, and celebrities, was operating in a high-pressure environment where every choice carried potential consequences and where the absence of action could be as impactful as deliberate action. Amidst this tension, Meghan demonstrated remarkable poise. Her movements were controlled, her expressions carefully moderated, and her interactions deliberate. Yet, even in maintaining her composure, she could not fully escape the emotional weight of the moment. The denial of visibility, the subtle exclusion, and the charged atmosphere created an emotional spike, a moment where human vulnerability intersected with the performative demands of public life. And as the red carpet moment stretched longer than anticipated, whispers and speculation continued to grow. Media outlets posted updates in real time. Fans speculated about motivations, and the crowd's energy oscillated between curiosity, concern, and intrigue. The denied photograph had become more than a simple technical hiccup. It had become a narrative pivot point, a catalyst for drama, speculation, and tension that would echo throughout the evening. But even as Meghan moved toward the interior of the venue, the story was far from over. Behind the polished surfaces, backstage corridors, and velvet ropes, the implications of the denied photograph were beginning to ripple outward. Alliances would be tested, narratives would shift, and public perception would be recalibrated in ways that no one had anticipated. And yet, in that charged moment of denial, one question hung over the entire event. Who had made the decision, and what would the consequences be, not just for Meghan, but for everyone in attendance? The answer was shrouded in whispers, gestures, and subtle tensions, waiting to be revealed as the night continued to unfold. But what came next would shock the world, and no one was prepared for it. Backstage at the Governor Awards 2025, chaos was quietly erupting, and it was the kind of chaos that the public rarely, if ever, sees. The red carpet had its own rhythm, carefully orchestrated flashes and smiles designed to create the illusion of perfection. But behind those velvet ropes, the carefully choreographed performance was unraveling. Phones buzzed incessantly, walkie-talkies crackled with urgency, and aides, organizers, and security personnel moved in rapid, precise bursts, each trying to manage the situation without letting the tension spill into the public eye. The instant Meghan Markle's photograph was denied on the red carpet, a ripple of disruption shot through the inner workings of the event. Coordinators were huddled near the entrance, speaking in clipped, urgent tones. "We need to fix this before the cameras turn," one whispered, glancing nervously at the monitors showing live feeds of the red carpet. "No, it's already too late," another replied, shaking their head. The room was tense, voices low but sharp, the kind of tension that only comes when every single decision carries the weight of potential scandal. Security personnel were scrambling to maintain order, repositioning themselves to form protective buffers around Meghan. Their movements were subtle but deliberate, designed to shield her from the prying lenses of photographers while also controlling the flow of attention. Each gesture, each shift in position, spoke volumes to those paying attention. The room was a silent orchestra of micro-decisions, each note impacting the unfolding narrative. Meanwhile, Meghan's team moved with practiced precision, trying to stabilize the emotional and logistical chaos. Aides whispered instructions, gesturing to photographers and security, while checking her schedule to ensure that the rest of her evening could proceed smoothly despite the disruption. The emotional stakes were high. This was not just about optics. A single misstep could spiral into a media frenzy, fueling rumors, criticism, and speculation that would dominate headlines for days. The team's focus was relentless, their eyes constantly scanning for potential pitfalls, their minds racing through contingencies and backup plans. The chaos wasn't limited to security and aides. Event organizers, who normally move with quiet authority behind the scenes, were visibly flustered. Some were pacing, others huddled in corners whispering urgently to colleagues. Decisions that would normally be routine, camera placements, timing cues, guest instructions, were suddenly fraught with complexity. One minor miscalculation could ignite a social media storm, and everyone involved knew it. The stakes were amplified by the fact that Meghan Markle, a figure whose every action is scrutinized globally, was at the center of this storm. Inside the main hall, other celebrities began to notice subtle disruptions. Some exchanged raised eyebrows, slight gestures, or amused glances. Others whispered quietly to assistants, speculating about what had occurred on the red carpet. It was a delicate dance. No one wanted to appear overtly concerned or curious, yet everyone was acutely aware that something unusual had just transpired. In an environment where perception is everything, a subtle reaction could be interpreted as judgment, alignment, or even complicity. Backstage, a small group of organizers was frantically debating next steps. "We can't have the cameras on her yet," one said, voice tense. "It will create confusion. Just wait for the cue." Another countered, "But leaving her in limbo will make the story worse. Everyone will see it." Their voices were low, but the urgency was palpable. Decisions were being made on the fly, with incomplete information, and the consequences could extend far beyond the event itself. Aides moved strategically around Meghan, whispering reassurances while simultaneously calculating how to navigate the delicate optics. "Stay calm," one murmured. "Just continue as if nothing happened." Meghan nodded, her composure impeccable on the surface, but inside, the stakes were enormous. She knew that every facial expression, every subtle reaction, could be interpreted by millions watching live or through social media. The emotional pressure was intense, yet she maintained control, a testament to her experience and resilience. Meanwhile, the chaos extended to technology and media coordination. Screens displaying live feeds were showing the red carpet from multiple angles, and the denial of her photograph created immediate feedback loops of speculation. Social media monitors flagged trending topics as hashtags began to emerge organically, driven by the curious and speculative audience. Hashtag Meghan denied, hashtag red carpet drama, and hashtag Governor Awards 2025 were gaining traction within minutes. Every post, every comment, every share amplified the uncertainty and tension, creating a real-time, global audience invested in the outcome of a single denied photograph. The aides and staff scrambled to manage both the public perception and Meghan's personal experience. They guided her toward a private area, one shielded from cameras, where she could gather herself and prepare for the next sequence of the evening. Yet, even in that moment, whispers and discussions about the incident followed her. Staff communicated urgently via headsets, coordinating movements and strategizing responses. Every detail mattered. Where she would stand, how she would enter the venue, which celebrities she would interact with first, and how to mitigate the impact of the denied photograph. What was particularly striking was the emotional complexity unfolding behind the scenes. The denial of a photograph might seem minor to an outsider, but in this context, it carried symbolic weight. It was not just about visibility. It was about acknowledgement, inclusion, and the subtle hierarchies of power that govern events of this scale. Everyone in the room, organizers, staff, celebrities, and aides, understood this implicitly. The emotional stakes were high, and the consequences of missteps could reverberate far beyond the walls of the Governor Awards. The tension backstage was punctuated by moments of humor and irony, as staff members exchanged incredulous glances or whispered quips to one another. "I can't believe this is happening," one muttered under their breath. "It's like a scene out of a movie." Another replied with a chuckle. "Only we'd managed to turn a photo op into a psychological thriller." Yet the laughter was fleeting, quickly replaced by renewed focus on logistics and strategy. There was no room for error, and everyone understood that the stakes were as high as they had ever been. Adding another layer to the chaos was the flow of information, or rather, the lack of it. Conflicting reports and fragmented updates made decision-making difficult. Some staff members received instructions that contradicted previous guidance, while others interpreted ambiguous gestures or directives in different ways. The uncertainty amplified the emotional intensity, forcing aides and organizers to operate under constant pressure while anticipating potential repercussions. Every choice carried weight, and every misstep could have immediate consequences on social media and in public perception. Meanwhile, Meghan's presence, though shielded from cameras, remained a focal point of attention. Staff coordinated her movements carefully, anticipating how she would be perceived when re-entering the public eye. Each gesture, each step, was calculated to maintain composure while signaling confidence and control. Even in moments of uncertainty, she projected a sense of calm authority, a skill honed over years of navigating intense scrutiny and public expectation. And yet, even with meticulous planning, the chaos had emotional reverberations. The aides, staff, and organizers were aware that their actions, or inactions, could be interpreted as complicity, negligence, or intentional sabotage. The weight of responsibility created a palpable tension, a silent stress that permeated every corner of the backstage area. Decisions were no longer just logistical. They were emotional, strategic, and profoundly consequential. As the night progressed, whispers began circulating among those who were observing from the interior of the venue. Some celebrities exchanged subtle signals, others whispered comments to assistants, and a few were audibly shocked by what had transpired on the red carpet. Rumors began to form organically, spreading from person to person, fueled by curiosity, concern, and the ever-present desire to anticipate what might happen next. The denied photograph had become more than a technical glitch. It was a catalyst, igniting speculation, emotion, and strategy in equal measure. Through it all, Meghan remained composed, navigating the swirling chaos with a calm exterior that belied the intensity of the situation. Yet beneath the surface, the stakes were immense. Every micro-movement, every interaction, and every glance had the potential to shape not only her personal narrative, but also the broader perception of the event itself. The denied photograph had created a complex web of tension, curiosity, and intrigue that extended far beyond the immediate moment. And just as the backstage drama reached a fever pitch, a new development emerged. A cryptic message from one of the organizers, whispered urgently to his senior aide. It was brief, almost imperceptible, but carried a weight that shifted the dynamic entirely. Suddenly, the team realized that the moment of disruption was not just a logistical hiccup, but part of a larger, unfolding narrative that would continue to evolve throughout the night, and perhaps beyond. But what came next would escalate the tension even further, and no one backstage, nor on the red carpet, was prepared for it. The red carpet, always a stage of glamour and meticulously curated appearances, had become a theater of tension the moment Meghan Markle's photograph was denied. The subtle denial didn't go unnoticed. Celebrities, accustomed to the intricate choreography of high-profile events, immediately sensed the shift. Some reacted with surprise, some with curiosity, and others with calculated indifference. It was a delicate balancing act. Any overt reaction could be scrutinized, interpreted, and amplified by cameras, social media, and gossip blogs. Yet the human response, subtle, involuntary, and revealing, was impossible to suppress entirely. Inside the press line, photographers whispered among themselves, trying to rationalize the strange moment. "Did you see that?" one asked. "The flash just didn't go off." Another photographer, shaking his head, muttered, "I've never seen anything like it. What's going on?" The murmurs spread like wildfire, forming the backdrop of speculation that would soon spill onto social media. In real time, the event had morphed from a routine, glamorous evening into a drama charged with intrigue, power plays, and subtle psychological warfare. Celebrities themselves reacted in a fascinating spectrum. Some, familiar with Meghan and her history in Hollywood, expressed concern with subtle glances and supportive gestures. A few extended discreet nods or soft smiles, signaling acknowledgement without overstepping the delicate optics of the moment. Others, less connected or perhaps strategically calculating their public position, remained neutral or even visibly indifferent, understanding that any overt display could be construed as alignment, dissent, or opportunism. The reactions weren't always verbal. Microexpressions, a raised eyebrow, a fleeting smirk, or a subtle shoulder shift, all were interpreted by the observant. One actress, standing nearby, whispered to her assistant, her voice barely audible over the murmur of the crowd, "Did you see that? Something's definitely off." Another celebrity tilted her head slightly, a gesture of curiosity that drew the attention of fans and media alike. These small, human reactions, while seemingly insignificant, added layers to the narrative, fueling the growing curiosity gap that audiences live for. Social media began to pick up on the reactions immediately. Attendees and online watchers posted live updates. "Look at the way X glanced at Meghan. Something's happening." And "Even Y is confused. No one knows what's going on." Within minutes, hashtags began to emerge, trending across multiple platforms. Hashtag Meghan denied, hashtag red carpet mystery, and hashtag Governor Awards drama. The real-time commentary created a feedback loop, amplifying the tension and ensuring that every subtle reaction was noticed, analyzed, and speculated upon. Some celebrities were visibly conflicted. They were professionals, well-versed in the rules of engagement in these public spaces, yet human emotions couldn't be completely masked. The room was thick with unspoken commentary, admiration, envy, concern, judgment, all simmering beneath carefully controlled surfaces. A few whispered to their assistants, their expressions betraying an instinct to seek guidance or reassurance about the optics of acknowledging Meghan or remaining neutral. The red carpet had become a subtle battlefield of alliances, loyalties, and perception management. Not all responses were supportive. A handful of attendees, perhaps feeling the ripple of competition or historical grievances, showed mild signs of discomfort or subtle distancing. Some shifted their positions to appear less engaged, while others deliberately avoided making eye contact, maintaining the illusion of composure. These gestures, small yet meaningful, were immediately noticed by photographers, event staff, and the broader audience, adding intrigue to an already volatile scenario. Meanwhile, backstage whispers about the celebrity reactions fed back into the event's chaos. Organizers and aides monitored the room, aware that every facial expression and gesture could influence the unfolding narrative. A raised eyebrow or a whispered comment could be broadcast online within moments, interpreted in countless ways, and become the focus of speculation for millions. The intricate dance of public perception and private reaction was in full force, and everyone involved knew it. The dynamic of human emotion played out in real time. Some celebrities, drawn by empathy or solidarity, subtly approached Meghan or her aides, offering quiet words of encouragement. Others, calculating potential consequences, kept their distance. The tension between these reactions created a narrative layer as compelling as the red carpet glamour itself. Observers noted the nuance: a comforting hand on an assistant's shoulder, a fleeting glance toward Meghan, a discreet nod, each moment meticulously scrutinized. Humor also appeared, in fleeting, almost imperceptible ways. Some attendees exchanged amused glances or whispered ironic commentary, masking their surprise with laughter. "Well, this is turning into a real-life soap opera," one whispered to an assistant, smirking. Another muttered, "Only at these awards could a photo op become a psychological thriller." Even in moments of chaos, humor served as a coping mechanism, a way for celebrities to navigate tension without disrupting the delicate optics of the evening. The audience watching from home or following updates online became instant participants in this unfolding drama. Every subtle celebrity reaction was dissected in real time. Body language, gaze, posture, even the angle of a smile became data points for speculation. Tweets, live blogs, and comment threads proliferated as the online audience attempted to interpret the subtext. Each new observation fed the curiosity gap, ensuring that attention remained fixated on Meghan and the reaction she elicited, sustaining engagement across platforms and demographics. Backstage, aides were acutely aware of these dynamics. They monitored celebrity movements, managed Meghan's positioning, and provided strategic guidance to navigate both human behavior and optics. Every decision, whether to engage with a particular attendee, maintain distance, or respond to a gesture, was calculated to optimize the narrative while minimizing potential fallout. The intersection of human emotion, professional strategy, and public perception created an environment of extraordinary intensity. Some of the reactions were unexpected. A few high-profile attendees, previously considered distant or neutral toward Meghan, exhibited subtle but unmistakable signs of support. Perhaps driven by empathy, past collaboration, or strategic positioning, these gestures sent ripples through the audience and media. Even a slight smile, a discreet nod, or a soft comment could become headline material in a world obsessed with celebrity signaling. These small acts amplified curiosity, inviting observers to question alliances, intentions, and the broader narrative of the evening. Yet the tension persisted. While some celebrities offered support, others remained silent, their neutrality adding ambiguity to the unfolding drama. The denied photograph was more than a moment of invisibility. It had become a test of loyalty, perception, and strategic positioning. Every micro-expression was now a potential signal, every glance a potential headline. And in the complex ecosystem of the Governor Awards, ambiguity was as powerful as overt action. The emotional stakes escalated further when a group of celebrities, noticing the subtle disruption, exchanged quiet but pointed commentary. Whispers of intrigue, speculation about motives, and historical context mingled, creating a web of interpretation that extended far beyond the immediate moment. Every reaction contributed to the narrative, layering curiosity, tension, and speculation in ways that would dominate conversation for hours, if not days. Even allies had to navigate carefully. While empathy motivated some, professional strategy dictated caution. Each supportive gesture had to be measured, precise, and controlled. Too overt a response could backfire, while too subtle a response risked being overlooked entirely. The delicate balance between human emotion and public perception became the defining feature of the evening's celebrity interactions. As the red carpet continued, social media's amplification of these reactions intensified. Observers at home speculated about alliances, intentions, and the unspoken dynamics between Meghan and the other attendees. Each gesture, every facial expression, and even body language became fodder for debate and analysis. The denied photograph, while small in itself, had created a cascading series of consequences that affected celebrities, organizers, staff, and global audiences alike. And amidst this intricate web of reactions, one question persisted. Which reactions were genuine, and which were calculated for optics? The ambiguity fueled fascination, curiosity, and speculation, ensuring that attention remained firmly fixed on Meghan, her responses, and the subtle gestures of those around her. But just as the celebrity reactions reached a peak of speculation and analysis, a sudden, unexpected gesture occurred. one that would shift alliances, ignite debate, and leave both the audience and Meghan herself questioning what would happen next. What came next would change everything on the red carpet, and no one was prepared for it. The moment Meghan Markle's photograph was denied on the red carpet, a ripple of confusion spread beyond the immediate circle of organizers and aides. Security teams, trained for precision and order, suddenly found themselves navigating a situation that was neither routine nor predictable. The Governor Awards, despite its polished exterior, had entered a phase of tension where protocol and human emotion collided in ways that threatened to upend the carefully constructed balance of the evening. Security personnel, stationed strategically along the red carpet and throughout the backstage corridors, moved quickly to assess both the physical and social dynamics of the moment. The initial directive was simple: maintain order, ensure safety, and keep the event flowing smoothly. But when Meghan's photograph was denied, the simplicity of their mission evaporated almost immediately. Who had made the decision? Was it intentional? Could it spark unrest, confusion, or a media storm? Each question demanded rapid evaluation, and each answer was layered with uncertainty. Inside the control room, security coordinators monitored multiple feeds simultaneously. Red carpet cameras, live event feeds, and backstage monitors flickered across a wall of screens. A tense dialogue unfolded among the team, punctuated by urgent whispers and clipped instructions. "She's moving toward the next station. Can we redirect photographers?" one coordinator asked. Another responded, "We need to maintain the perimeter. Don't let anyone breach her path." The instructions were precise but constrained by ambiguity, reflecting the high stakes of maintaining control over a situation where human behavior was unpredictable. The challenge extended beyond physical security. Protocol, the invisible yet omnipresent set of rules governing celebrity and public appearances, was suddenly ambiguous. Who had the authority to deny a photograph? Were organizers acting independently, or was there a directive from higher up, possibly palace aides or event executives, dictating the restriction? Security teams found themselves caught between enforcing formal rules and responding to the unpredictable emotional currents of those involved. Each decision had potential consequences, both immediate and long-term, in ways that could ripple across media coverage, social perception, and internal event dynamics. Aides and organizers, meanwhile, were urgently trying to communicate with the security team. "Hold her in place for just a moment," one whispered. "Wait until we coordinate the next cue." Yet even as they tried to issue instructions, uncertainty lingered. Some security personnel interpreted directives differently, creating subtle inconsistencies in movement and positioning. The slightest misalignment, a step too far, a gesture misinterpreted, could be captured by photographers or social media, amplifying confusion and fueling speculation. The psychological dimension of security became increasingly apparent. Meghan, poised and composed on the surface, was navigating not just a public display but a series of subtle social negotiations. Every glance, gesture, and interaction was observed by security, aides, and event staff. The tension of the moment required not just physical presence but emotional intelligence and rapid adaptability. Security officers found themselves balancing the need to shield her from potential disruptions while also facilitating the optics of her public appearance. The dance was delicate, precise, and under immense pressure. At one point, a minor miscommunication between security and organizers nearly escalated the situation. A photographer stepped forward despite instructions, prompted by the chaos and uncertainty on the red carpet. Security personnel reacted instantly, guiding the individual back while simultaneously attempting to prevent any visible disruption. The interaction, though brief, was captured by live feeds and transmitted to the screens backstage. The event's narrative was being shaped not only by deliberate actions, but also by reactive decisions made in real time under immense pressure. Meanwhile, social media magnified every movement. Viewers at home dissected videos, stills, and live footage, analyzing not just Meghan's demeanor, but also the gestures of security personnel. Questions circulated rapidly. Was the handling appropriate? Was there an intentional snub? Could the optics suggest tension between the event organizers and the celebrity? Every micro-decision, even those made instinctively, became fodder for interpretation, creating a complex feedback loop between the live event and the global audience. The intersection of protocol and human behavior created a particularly intricate challenge. Security had to enforce rules designed for standard operations, yet the rules themselves were suddenly fluid. Protocol dictated that all celebrities receive equitable treatment, including the standard photo opportunity. Yet the moment defied expectation. Were organizers attempting to adhere to some hidden directive, or was this a genuine oversight? Security officers were forced to navigate these layers of ambiguity while ensuring that Meghan and the event as a whole remained safe and orderly. Even the seemingly minor details became critical. The positioning of stanchions, the spacing between photographers, the alignment of red carpet ropes. All elements were recalibrated to accommodate the unfolding tension. Security personnel worked in near silence at times, relying on hand signals, subtle gestures, and whispered commands to maintain order without drawing attention. The precision required was extraordinary. The consequences of error were amplified by the presence of live cameras, global audiences, and social media scrutiny. Backstage, aides continued to coordinate closely with security. Every movement Meghan made had to be anticipated, choreographed, and adjusted in real time. Her path through the venue, interactions with other attendees, and even pauses for media acknowledgement were strategically planned. Security teams, in tandem with event staff, monitored every potential risk, physical, social, and reputational. It was a high-wire act performed under the glare of global attention. Tensions escalated further when questions about authority arose. Some security personnel were uncertain whether the directive to deny the photograph originated from the event organizers or higher-level advisors, possibly including palace officials. The uncertainty created a subtle power struggle, where each decision carried not only operational consequences, but also political and reputational implications. Misinterpreting an order could be catastrophic. Hesitating could be perceived as incompetence. The stakes were immense. The human element remained central. Meghan's poise and composure were tested against an environment of uncertainty and rapid decision-making. Security officers, though trained and disciplined, were navigating a scenario where emotional intelligence was as critical as procedural knowledge. Each gesture, an extended hand, a redirecting motion, a subtle barrier, was laden with meaning, interpreted by aides, attendees, and the audience alike. The psychological tension extended to other celebrities, who watched the situation unfold with curiosity, concern, or strategic calculation. The interplay between visibility, protocol, and human behavior created a dynamic tableau, one that was both fascinating and unpredictable. Alliances were subtly tested, loyalties quietly observed, and the entire event became a case study in how social dynamics, protocol, and human emotion intersect in high-stakes public appearances. Meanwhile, social media continued to amplify every detail. Observers scrutinized videos and images for evidence of tension, perceived snubs, or mismanagement. The global audience became part of the backstage calculations, influencing decisions, reactions, and strategies in real time. Security personnel, event organizers, and aides all operated with the awareness that their actions were being dissected beyond the physical space of the venue. The event had become not just a red carpet moment, but a complex narrative unfolding simultaneously in multiple dimensions: live, mediated, and virtual. The culmination of these factors created a charged atmosphere where every microaction mattered. Security had to enforce both physical safety and social protocol. Aides had to maintain emotional equilibrium and strategic positioning, and Meghan had to navigate the pressures of visibility, expectation, and subtle exclusion. It was a multi-layered challenge, a live exercise in crisis management where stakes were amplified by celebrity culture, media scrutiny, and the unpredictability of human emotion. And just when the situation seemed to reach a tenuous balance, a subtle shift occurred. An unexpected directive, a whispered instruction from an organizer, and a strategic repositioning of security personnel changed the dynamic of the moment entirely. The next steps Meghan would take, the path she would follow, and the way the audience, both in person and online, perceived the unfolding drama were now poised on the edge of revelation. But what happened next would ignite speculation, alliances, and confrontations in ways that no one could have anticipated. And the tension of the night was far from over. By the time Meghan Markle had moved past the initial chaos of the red carpet, the story had already taken on a life of its own, online. Social media, the ever-present amplifier of public perception, had latched onto the disruption within seconds. What started as a subtle denial of a photograph quickly evolved into a global spectacle, analyzed, dissected, and debated in real time by millions.